Have you ever been in a room full of people, even your own children or grandchildren, and still felt completely alone? It is a quiet kind of loneliness, not because no one's around, but because no one truly sees you. They sit beside you but do not talk. They eat your food, but don't ask how you're really doing. They assume you're fine, but deep down, you feel like a ghost in your own home. You raised a family. You gave your life to building something strong. Now, you're here, still surrounded by people, yet feeling more invisible than ever. This isn't about needing attention or being dramatic. It's about needing connection. Real, mutual, meaningful connection. The truth is, loneliness after 60 isn't always about who's missing. Sometimes it's about who's present, but emotionally unavailable. In this video, we're going to talk about the hidden causes of this emotional isolation that many seniors face, even in busy homes. And more importantly, we'll talk about what you can do to rebuild connection, speak your truth, and stop waiting for someone to notice you. You still matter. You still deserve to be seen. Let's talk about how to make that happen. Emotional disconnect. 2. They love you, but they don't really know you anymore. One of the most subtle yet painful forms of emotional disconnection after 60 is this. Your children still say they love you. They still visit, still bring gifts on holidays. But somewhere along the way, they stopped really knowing who you are. They know your title, mom, dad, grandpa, grandma. But do they know your dreams? Do they know the books you read? The thoughts that keep you up at night? The hobbies you secretly wish you could try? Do they know you? Many older adults find themselves emotionally fading into a role, not a relationship. You become the one who babysits, the one who cooks, the one who listens to their problems. And while those acts are full of love, they're also one-sided if no one stops to ask, how are you really doing? You may find yourself biting your tongue. You have thoughts, feelings, desires, but you keep them quiet because you do not want to burden your kids. Or you think, they have enough on their plates, and so your world grows smaller, quieter, and lonelier. This is not what connection is meant to be. True emotional closeness isn't just about showing up on birthdays. It's about curiosity. It's about effort. It's about asking questions and truly listening to the answers. So, how do we rebuild emotional intimacy with those who say they love us, but no longer seem to see us? We start by sharing more of ourselves. It might feel strange at first, especially if your family isn't used to hearing your opinions, your disappointments, your goals. But opening that door, just a little, can shift everything. You could say, I've been thinking a lot lately about taking a short trip on my own. I miss having deep conversations. I'd love to hear your thoughts on something that's been on my mind. I read a book recently that really moved me. Want to hear about it? These are small invitations, but powerful ones. You're not demanding attention, you're offering connection. And don't wait for the perfect moment. Start where you are. During dinner, on a walk, while folding laundry. Emotional intimacy isn't about big speeches. It's about shared honesty in the everyday. If you're afraid they won't care, try anyway. Because sometimes, when we open up, we remind our children that we are still people, not just roles. We remind them we are not just here to support them, but to be loved as ourselves. And if they don't respond as warmly as you hoped, that's okay. It's not a rejection, it's a beginning. People learn to connect by example. When you speak your truth with kindness, you create space for others to do the same. You are still growing. You are still curious. You still have dreams. Let them see that. Let them know you again. Emotional disconnect. 1. They're around but never really with you. One of the most confusing and heartbreaking forms of loneliness in older age is this. being physically surrounded by family but emotionally alone. You hear their footsteps, the clatter of dishes, the laughter from the next room. The house is full, but somehow your heart feels empty. You see your adult children come in with their busy lives. They say hello. They ask if you need anything. Maybe they hand you a plate of food. But then they drift off into their phones, into conversations with each other, into their own little worlds. You're there, but not with them. This kind of disconnect is quiet. It doesn't scream. It doesn't break things. It just builds. One skipped question, one unshared story, one short conversation at a time, until, eventually, you start to feel like a background character in your own life. It's not that your children are bad people. In fact, most are not even aware they're doing it. The modern world is fast, distracting, always rushing. But to you, someone who grew up in a time where sitting together meant talking, listening, connecting, this kind of emotional absence feels like rejection. And here's the truth. Emotional presence matters more than physical presence. Just being in the same room doesn't mean connection is happening. So how do you break through the surface and rebuild emotional presence? Start with honesty, not guilt, not blame. Just truth. Say something like, I miss feeling connected to you. I love seeing you, but I sometimes feel like we're not really talking anymore. I'd love to share more time, even just 15 minutes, where we really sit down and talk like we used to. Sometimes all it takes is naming the disconnection to bring someone back to the table. You can also take small steps. Turn off the TV when they visit. Put your phone away and invite them to do the same. Ask questions that go beyond, "How was your day?" Share something vulnerable from your heart. Create space for depth. It's not about forcing them to be different, it's about inviting connection back into the relationship, gently, lovingly, without judgment. And if they don't respond right away, that's okay. Seeds take time to grow, but your effort, your voice, your desire to connect is never wasted. Because no one, no matter how old, ever stops needing to feel seen. You are not asking for too much. You are asking for something human. And you deserve that, even now, especially now. Emotional disconnect. 3. They assume you're fine, so they stop asking. There is a unique kind of loneliness that comes not from being abandoned, but from being assumed. When the people around you stop asking how you are, not out of cruelty, but out of comfort, a dangerous silence begins to settle in. They seem fine. It is one of the most misleading sentences in any language. You smile, you nod, you help with the dishes. You play with the grandkids, you answer, "I'm okay," when someone casually asks. And so, the people around you believe it. They believe you are always fine because you have learned to hide it so well. But inside, you may be carrying worries about your health, your purpose, or the loss of companionship. You may feel tired, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. But because no one asks, you learn to stay quiet. And that silence turns into isolation. When people stop checking in, it does not mean they do not love you. Often it means they assume you are the strong one, the reliable one, the one who will never complain. But strength without acknowledgement becomes a burden. This is how emotional distance grows, not in a single dramatic moment, but in a slow drift of missed chances. Conversations that stay on the surface, phone calls that become less frequent, visits that feel like obligation, not connection. You are not needy for wanting to be asked, "How are you really doing?" You are human. You are not fragile for wanting someone to care about more than your physical well-being. You are wise. and wisdom carries emotional depth that deserves to be known and shared. So what can be done? Sometimes you must break the cycle. If no one is asking, that does not mean your voice is not welcome. It means they may need to be reminded that you have a story too. Try saying, I've been feeling a little invisible lately. I know I look fine, but there's been a lot on my mind. I miss when we used to talk more deeply. These are not complaints, they are openings. They invite reconnection. You can also model the kind of curiosity you hope to receive. Ask your children or grandchildren meaningful questions. Show them what it looks like to care, not just about schedules or errands, but about the person inside. When people feel seen by you, they are more likely to want to see you too. Do not wait until you're breaking to speak. Let others know when you are struggling, even a little. You don't have to share every detail, you just have to let them in. There is no shame in wanting to be known even after 60. In fact, it is one of the most powerful things you can teach the younger generations. That real strength includes emotional honesty. Because here's the truth, being assumed fine can be just as isolating as being forgotten. You are not a statue. You are not just the helper, the giver, the background support. You are a person with layers, with needs, with dreams that have not expired. You still want to be understood. You still deserve to be asked. Emotional disconnect. 4. You're always the listener, never the one heard. For many older adults, a common pattern quietly forms in conversations with loved ones. They become the listener, the patient ear, the calm presence, the emotional sponge. You nod as your children vent about their work. You offer comfort when your friends are going through something. You smile and stay quiet when others dominate the conversation. Somehow, over time, the balance of mutual sharing gets lost, and you become everyone's sounding board, but no one is yours. You are the one people call when they need to talk. But when was the last time someone called just to ask how you are doing? When was the last time someone truly listened, not out of duty, but out of genuine interest? It is subtle, but damaging. Because every relationship should be a two-way street. But if you are always on the listening end, always the one holding space for others, it starts to feel less like connection and more like being used. This dynamic often starts from love. You are kind, empathetic, you want to be there. And that's beautiful. But over time, if your emotional cup is always poured into others with no one refilling yours, it leads to quiet burnout and a deepening loneliness. Being a good listener is a strength, but it should not come at the cost of your own voice being silenced. You matter too. Your stories matter. Your struggles. Your ideas. Your laughter. They deserve space in the conversation. So how do you shift this dynamic? It starts with recognizing your own need to be heard and giving yourself permission to speak. If you are always deflecting the spotlight, always rushing to make others feel better, try slowing down. Let a moment of silence stretch. Then say, I've been going through something lately and I could really use someone to talk to. I know I usually just listen, but I'd love to share something that's been on my mind. At first, it may feel awkward. You may even worry you are being selfish or burdensome. But hear this. Speaking your truth is not selfish. It is necessary for authentic connection. Also, observe the people around you. Do they only reach out when they need something? Do they ever ask you how you're doing without being prompted? If not, it might be time to gently create new boundaries. You can say, I value our relationship, but I'd appreciate if we could also talk about how I'm doing sometimes. This is not demanding. It is simply asking for balance. And sometimes the change begins not by confronting others, but by seeking out new conversations where you are truly seen. That could mean joining a group where everyone shares, not just listens, or starting a friendship with someone who matches your energy. You do not have to settle for being everyone's therapist. You are allowed to want and need emotional reciprocity. The next time you feel yourself retreating into the role of just the listener, pause and ask yourself, who is listening to me? Because the answer to that question matters, and so do you. Emotional disconnect 5. They dismiss your feelings as overreacting. There is a particular kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone, but from being made to feel ridiculous when you try to express how you feel. It happens when your adult child, or even a close friend, hears your concern and says, "You're overthinking it. That's just how things are these days. Don't be so sensitive. You worry too much." At first, these comments may sound harmless, but over time, they chip away at your confidence, your trust in yourself, and your sense of safety in speaking up. Slowly, you begin to question your instincts. You start to stay silent, and that silence grows heavier with each passing day. This is called emotional invalidation, when someone dismisses, minimizes, or mocks your emotions instead of acknowledging them. And it is one of the most painful emotional disconnects you can experience, because it tells you your emotions don't matter. You're wrong to feel what you feel. This pattern is especially common among adult children who may mean well, but are unaware of how deeply hurtful their words can be. They may think they're protecting you from stress. They may be rushing through conversations. They may simply not know how to respond to emotions they don't understand. But the result is the same. You feel alone, not because you're invisible, but because you're being invalidated. The truth is, everyone has a right to their feelings. And as an elder who's lived through love, loss, struggle, and triumph, your emotional experience is not only valid, it's valuable. You have insight that took a lifetime to earn. So what can you do when people around you brush off your concerns or shame you for being too emotional? First, stop apologizing for how you feel. You don't need to justify your sadness, your anger, your joy, or your fear. Those feelings are messengers. They are signals from your inner world. And they deserve attention. When someone dismisses your feelings, respond calmly but clearly. "I'm not overreacting. I'm expressing something that matters to me." You can also set a boundary. "I'd appreciate it if you could listen without minimizing how I feel." Sometimes you may need to pause a conversation entirely if it becomes dismissive. You can say, "I'd rather not continue if I'm not being taken seriously," and then walk away, not in anger, but in self-respect. It's also important to seek out emotionally safe people, friends, support groups, or even online communities where you are encouraged to speak and feel freely. Spaces where your feelings are welcomed, not questioned. Here is something essential to remember. Feeling deeply is not a weakness. It's evidence that your heart is still open. In a world that tries to numb us, your emotional sensitivity is a gift. So never let anyone convince you that you are too much. Instead, remind yourself, and the people in your life, that being real, being honest, and being emotionally alive is the strongest thing you can be. You deserve to be heard. Not dismissed, not corrected, just heard. Emotional disconnect. 6. You're always the listener, never the one heard. There's a role many elders fall into without even realizing it. The quiet listener, the patient one, the dependable ear. You nod, you smile, you listen while your adult children unload their stress, their marriages, their work drama, their parenting struggles. You are always available, always supportive, always there. But what happens when the moment you need to talk, really talk? No one leans in. No one asks, "What's been on your mind lately?" Or, How are you really doing? They assume you're okay because you're quiet. They assume you don't have anything to say because you don't interrupt. They assume that because you've been strong for so long, you have no need to be held, to be heard, to be seen. And this is how deep loneliness begins. Not in the absence of people, but in the absence of curiosity about you. You become the emotional anchor, holding everyone steady, while no one asks if you're tired of carrying it all. It's exhausting. It's heartbreaking. And worst of all, it's isolating. Many seniors say they feel more like emotional furniture than family, something always present, always supportive, but not truly noticed. And the longer this goes on, the harder it becomes to speak up. You start to believe your thoughts are less important, that your worries are silly, that your voice should only rise in support, not in need. But this belief is a lie. The truth? You are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to speak. You are allowed to be heard. Being older does not mean being invisible. So how do you shift this dynamic? First, you name it. Out loud. Calmly. Try saying, I notice that I do a lot of listening, but I rarely get asked how I'm doing. That's been feeling lonely lately. This is not complaining. It's naming a pattern and inviting a change. You can also ask for space to share. Would you mind if I shared something I've been thinking about lately? You may be surprised at how this simple invitation opens a door. Sometimes people aren't dismissing you out of cruelty. They're just used to you being the strong, silent one. Break that pattern, and if your attempts still go unheard, that tells you something important. It tells you to find better listeners. Because here's something many people forget. Support is not just about what you give, it's also about what you're allowed to receive. Look for people who ask questions and wait for the answers, who don't just vent, but check in, who see you not just as mom, bayaw, dad, ande, or grandma, but as a full person with dreams, disappointments, thoughts, and wisdom. Join a community group. Find a circle where stories are exchanged, not just absorbed. Reach out to people who genuinely see you. Your voice doesn't lose power with age. In fact, it becomes richer, deeper, wiser, but it only stays alive if you use it. So, speak. Ask for emotional reciprocity. Stop only nodding and start sharing. Because the quietest people often carry the loudest truths, and the world, especially your family, needs to hear yours. Emotional disconnect. 7. They rely on you, but they no longer respect you. There's a subtle but painful shift that happens in many families as parents age. The children, now grown, still rely on you. For help, for advice, for watching the grandkids, for picking up the phone when they're in trouble, for bailing them out of financial messes or emotional breakdowns. They call when they need something. They lean on you often. But here's the part that hurts the most. They don't seem to respect you anymore. They roll their eyes at your opinions. They interrupt when you speak. They ignore your advice but expect you to be available when they're in crisis. It's like you've been downgraded, from parent to convenience, from wise elder to someone they put up with, from head of the household to background noise. This isn't just about manners. It's about emotional dignity. Respect is not just about how they speak to you. It's about whether they still see you as someone who matters. Many older adults say they feel used but not valued, needed but not appreciated, present but not acknowledged. This disconnect is a form of emotional erosion, small moments chipping away at your confidence, your identity, your place in the family. And over time, if left unspoken, it begins to feel normal, but it should not be normal. So how do you respond when the people who rely on you most treat you like an afterthought? Start with a hard truth. You teach people how to treat you. not just when you're strong, but when you stay silent. If you tolerate disrespect, you normalize it. Call it out clearly and kindly. Say something like, I've noticed lately that I'm often dismissed when I try to speak, even though I'm still helping and showing up. That hurts. Set emotional boundaries, not just physical ones. You might need to say, I'm happy to help when I'm treated with the respect I deserve. If I feel talked down to or disregarded, I'll need to step back. That's not a threat. That's self-respect. Stop overgiving. Many elders give in time, money, energy, hoping it will earn love or attention. But love built on guilt or obligation is not real love. Giving should be mutual, joyful, and acknowledged. Rebuild your identity beyond being the fixer or the helper. You are more than what you do for them. You are a whole person with wisdom, history, and value. Remind them and yourself of that. Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Disrespect thrives in silence. Every time you speak up, you reclaim a piece of your dignity. And if they resist, know this: sometimes respect must be retaught. Not through anger, but through boundaries. You're not demanding. You're not difficult. You are drawing a line, not to push them away, but to protect what matters, your worth. Because here's the bottom line: if they rely on you but refuse to respect you, that's not love, that's exploitation. And you have every right, every wisdom-earned right, to walk away from that dynamic and reestablish a relationship based on mutual care, not convenience. If you've made it to this point in life, past heartbreak, hard work, sacrifice, and deep love, you've earned more than just a seat at the table. You've earned the right to feel seen, heard, and respected. Loneliness after 60 is not just about being physically alone. It's about being emotionally overlooked. You can be in a full house and still feel empty inside. You can be surrounded by family and still feel like a ghost. But here's what matters: you're not invisible. You're not forgotten. You're not finished. Your story is still unfolding. Your voice still has power, and your presence still carries weight. So do not shrink yourself to keep the peace. Do not silence your heart just to avoid discomfort. And do not let the people around you forget who you are and what you've lived through to be here. Speak, stand, share. Even if they don't understand today, you are laying the foundation for the respect you deserve tomorrow. And most of all, don't wait for others to make you feel connected. Start by reconnecting with yourself. Because the most powerful relationship you will ever have is the one you build with your own soul.